This is the kind of song you write when you're getting old. It's called Confusion. I have never been held up by two short Mexican albinos, and I've never played canasta with a duck who wore a wristwatch. And as far as I can tell, I've not been sucked up by a cyclone and deposited 5 miles from Albuquerque. Pretty sure I've never lived in a Tibetan lamasery or an opal miner's cave in New South Wales or even Queensland, but I think I had a visit from the cousin of a fella who once played a game of golf with Norman Mailer. One time I thought I'd found a formula for how to square a circle, but then realized I'm not that good at math. And I thought I'd build a raft and navigate the North Atlantic, but there were too many icebergs in my path. I have never been the owner of a poultry farm in Akron, and I certainly was not the one who wrote the Magna Carta, though I think I may have spent an evening playing chutes and ladders with the sister of a guy who worked for Hoffa. If I had lived through a depression, I'd have certainly remembered or had written any letters to the Pope or Jerry Lewis, but I think I may have won the Nobel Prize in Economics and then subsequently written 3 bestsellers. If I had done a thing I should have done or didn't do another one, I probably would not be here today. If I'd seen a thing I should have seen or been where I should not have been, I surely would have looked the other way. Well, I have never eaten sushi in the Library of Congress. I don't think I've practiced dentistry in Fargo, North Dakota, and I can't remember if I ever drove a Lamborghini and got ticketed for talking on a cell phone. I wasn't hiding in the corner of the book depository when the presidential motor convoy came. But if I had been, then I'd surely have created a disturbance, and Lee Harvey Oswald might have missed his aim. I've had a coronary bypass by a surgical practitioner who shared a chicken sandwich with the anesthesiologist while telling dirty jokes to the amusement of the nurses, but I think that I survived the whole affair. And it's possible I wasn't even there, but I'm not sure that I really even care.